Welcome back to Stanway STEM Club. The project we've been doing for the last few weeks involves computer design and 3D modelling. I have a 3D printer at home and I do quite a lot of that as a hobby myself, so I thought I'd take the students through designing a 3D model and then how the printer prints it out, and then we'd paint them at the end. So this is how a 3D printer works. It takes plastic filament, which is kind of like wire. It's about 2 mm thick, and it extrudes it through a hot piece of metal about 200 degrees, which melts it, and then it squirts it out onto a hot build plate, which makes it stick to it, and it does it using computer code called G-code, which we make using certain software. So this is how the 3D printer works. This is just a generic one, not my one. I then showed the students here a software called Tinkercad, and this is free online, so even if you don't have a 3D printer, you could still have your students design some 3D models. And they found you've got your workspace here, you can drag around. It is much easier to use with a mouse, as we found out. And then of course they've got all these pre-built shapes here, so they can put in a shape, you can drag it, you can zoom in and resize. It's quite intuitive once you get to it, and of course there are tutorials online. And then our students found out immediately that you can get all these wacky characters and things, Minecraft looking heads and ice cream cones and all sorts of wacky stuff. So they ended up coming up with some pretty interesting stuff by the end of it. Essentially we showed them that you could put objects together like this, and you can merge them in and make them bigger and that sort of thing. Let's just make something random here. Okay, there we go. And we'll stick that just onto there. After this, we took it through to the Slicer software to show how the 3D printer actually turns it into code. The Slicer software, as the name describes, slices the model into layers, and depending on your settings will show you how it's going to print as the finished product. So this is really good for showing the students how it's going to look on the printer, especially if you don't have a printer to hand. If you don't, there are services online that will print things for you at a cost. If you're running a STEM department in a school, you might want to consider getting a little tiny 3D printer just to work with. The ones I've got are quite big, but it's my hobby, so it's easier to do that. If you're going to do a lot of stuff with 3D printing, it might be worth investing in, because they're fairly cheap kits you get nowadays. So here's my model that we designed just now with the moustache on the cylinder thing. You can see all these settings down the side, so layer height, line width, lots and lots of things, and it's even more complicated than that. There's lots you can go into. If we just click slice on this, it will slice it into pieces and calculate how long it's going to take. So it's telling me 41 minutes for this. If we go on a preview, it will then show us the layer lines. Okay, so we can go into here, and if you zoom in far enough, you see that each of these red lines is a layer. Okay, and we can see how the layers are going to build up on the side panel just here. So this is how the layers build up. You can see inside I've got lightning infill, which is going to support the structure on the inside. So you can talk to the students about how the structure is supported by itself. Okay, and then if we use this little button here, it shows us how each layer actually prints. So if we go down a few layers, you will see this layer here is going to print in this order. So it's going to start here at the middle of the moustache, it's going to go round and extrude some plastic, then round and round and round, and then it's going to zigzag and fill in the middle bit. Okay, and you can see that for any of the layers on the structure, so this one in the middle here, it needs to go along and print all of these inside bits and then move on to the next layer. Okay, so that's the Slicer software. Once we save this file, we can then put it into our 3D printer and print it. I printed all of my students' designs at the weekend because I wanted to make sure they were ready to paint when we came back, and it took quite a long time. But while they were designing it, I did print a simple file just in the classroom so they could have something to watch and see how the 3D printer worked, and they really did enjoy seeing that. And once the students had had a little while playing around with the software, they came up with these, I have to say, fantastic designs. So here are some of the things the students designed, and you will see these in a moment after they were painted. I have to say, they did look very nice when they were painted. But some brilliant designs here using the pre-made stuff. It was better stuff than I thought was actually going to be made.